everyone. Welcome back to our channel, where we explore the fascinating world of cultures and traditions. Today, we're diving into the rich history and culture of Japan. Japan, an island nation located in East Asia, is known for its unique customs and traditions that have been passed down for centuries. The history of Japan spans more than 2,000 years, with influences from both Eastern and Western civilizations. The Japanese archipelago has been inhabited since the Upper Paleolithic 30,000 BC. Between the 4th and 9th centuries AD, the kingdoms of the region became unified under an emperor and the imperial court based in Heian-kyo. Beginning in the 12th century, political power was held by a series of military dictators, shogun, and feudal lords, daimyo, and enforced by a class of warrior nobility, samurai. After a century-long period of civil war, the country was reunified in 1603 under the Tokugawa shogunate, which enacted an isolationist foreign policy. In 1854, a United States fleet forced Japan to open trade to the West, which led to the end of the shogunate and the restoration of imperial power in 1868. In the Meiji period, the Empire of Japan adopted a Western-modeled constitution and pursued a program of industrialization and modernization. Amidst a rise in militarism and overseas colonization, Japan invaded China in 1937 and entered World War II as an Axis power in 1941. After suffering defeat in the Pacific War and to atomic bombings, Japan surrendered in 1945 and came under a 7-year Allied occupation, during which it adopted a new constitution. Under the 1947 Constitution, Japan has maintained a constitutional monarchy with a bicameral legislature, the National Diet. Japan is a highly developed country and a great power, with one of the largest economies by nominal GDP. Japan has renounced its right to declare war, though it maintains a self-defense force that ranks as one of the world's strongest militaries. A global leader in the automotive, robotics, and electronics industries, the country has made significant contributions to science and technology, and is one of the world's largest exporters and importers. It is part of multiple major international and intergovernmental institutions. Japan has over 125 million inhabitants and is the 11th most populous country in the world, as well as one of the most densely populated. About 3/4 of the country's terrain is mountainous, concentrating its highly urbanized population on narrow coastal plains. Japan is divided into 47 administrative prefectures and 8 traditional regions. The Greater Tokyo area is the most populous metropolitan area in the world. Japan has one of the world's longest life expectancies, but has a population decline due to its very low birth rate. Japan is a cultural superpower, as the culture of Japan is well known around the world, including its art, cuisine, film, music, and popular culture, which encompasses prominent manga, anime, and video game industries. The name for Japan in Japanese is written using the kanji and is pronounced Nippon or Nihon. Nippon, the original Sino-Japanese reading of the characters, is favored for official uses, including on Japanese banknotes and postage stamps. Nihon is typically used in everyday speech and reflects shifts in Japanese phonology during the Edo period. The characters mean sun origin, which is the source of the popular Western epithet land of the rising sun. The name Japan is based on Nin or Wu Chinese pronunciations of and was introduced to European languages through early trade. The old Malay name for Japan, Japang or Japan, was borrowed from a southern coastal Chinese dialect and encountered by Portuguese traders in Southeast Asia, who brought the word to Europe in the early 16th century. The first version of the name in English appears in a book published in 1577, which spelled the name as Japan in a translation of a 1565 Portuguese letter. A Paleolithic culture from around 30,000 BC constitutes the first known habitation of the islands of Japan. This was followed from around 14,500 BC, the start of the Jomon period, by a Mesolithic to Neolithic semi-sedentary hunter-gatherer culture characterized by pit-dwelling and rudimentary agriculture. Clay vessels from the period are among the oldest surviving examples of pottery. From around 700 BC, the Japonic-speaking Yaya people began to enter the archipelago from the Korean peninsula, intermingling with the Jomon. The Yaya period saw the introduction of practices including wet rice farming, a new style of pottery, and metallurgy from China and Korea. According to legend, Emperor Emu, grandson of Amaterasu, founded a kingdom in central Japan in 660 BC, beginning a continuous imperial line. Japan first appears in written history in the Chinese Book of Han, completed in 111 AD. Buddhism was introduced to Japan from Baekje, a Korean kingdom, in 552, but the development of Japanese Buddhism was primarily influenced by China. Despite early resistance, Buddhism was promoted by the ruling class, including figures like Prince Shotoku, and gained widespread acceptance beginning in the Asuka period 590 to 710. Japan's feudal era was characterized by the emergence and dominance of a ruling class of warriors, the samurai. In 1185, following the defeat of the Taira clan by the Minamoto clan in the Genpei War, Samurai Minamoto no Yoritomo established a military government at Kamakura. After Yoritomo's death, the Hige clan came to power as regents for the shogun. During the 16th century, Portuguese traders and Jesuit missionaries reached Japan for the first time, initiating direct commercial and cultural exchange between Japan and the West. The United States Navy sent Commodore Matthew C. Perry to force the opening of Japan to the outside world. Arriving at Arago with 4 black ships in July 1853, the Perry expedition resulted in the March 1854 Convention of Kanagawa. Adopting Western political, judicial, and military institutions, the cabinet organized the Privy Council, introduced the Meiji Constitution November 29, 1890, and assembled the Imperial Diet. The early 20th century saw a period of Taisho democracy 1912 to 1926 overshadowed by increasing expansionism and militarization. World War I allowed Japan, which joined the side of the victorious Allies, to capture German possessions in the Pacific and in China. The 1920s saw a political shift towards statism, a period of lawlessness following the 1923 Great Tokyo earthquake, the passing of laws against political dissent, and a series of attempted coups. This process accelerated during the 1930s, spawning several radical nationalist groups that shared a hostility to the liberal democracy and a dedication to expansion in Asia. In 1931, Japan invaded and occupied Manchuria. Following international condemnation of the occupation, it resigned from the League of Nations 2 years later. In 1936, Japan signed the Anti-Comintern Pact with Germany. The 1940 Tripartite Pact made it one of the Axis powers. The Empire of Japan invaded other parts of China in 1937, precipitating the Second Sino-Japanese War 1937 to 1945. In 1940, the empire invaded French Indochina, after which the United States placed an oil embargo on Japan. On December 7 to 8, 1941, Japanese forces carried out surprise attacks on Pearl Harbor, as well as on British forces in Malaya, Singapore, and Hong Kong, among others, beginning World War II in the Pacific. Throughout areas occupied by Japan during the war, numerous abuses were committed against local inhabitants, with many forced into sexual slavery. After Allied victories during the next 4 years, which culminated in the Soviet invasion of Manchuria and the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, Japan agreed to an unconditional surrender. The war cost Japan its colonies and millions of lives. 57 The Allies, led by the United States, repatriated millions of Japanese settlers from their former colonies and military camps throughout Asia, largely eliminating the Japanese Empire and its influence over the territories it conquered. The Allies convened the International Military Tribunal for the Far East to prosecute Japanese leaders except the Emperor for war crimes. In 1947, Japan adopted a new constitution emphasizing liberal democratic practices. 69. The Allied occupation ended with the Treaty of San Francisco in 1952. And Japan was granted membership in the United Nations in 1956. A period of record growth propelled Japan to become the second largest economy in the world. This ended in the mid-1990s after the popping of an asset price bubble, beginning the lost decade. In 2011, Japan suffered one of the largest earthquakes in its recorded history, triggering the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster. On May 1, 2019, after the historic abdication of Emperor Akihito, his son Naruhito became emperor, beginning the Reiwa era. Japan comprises 14,125 islands extending along the Pacific coast of Asia. 75 It stretches over 3,000 kilometers, 1,900 miles northeast-southwest from the Sea of Okhotsk to the East China Sea. The country's 5 main islands, From north to south are Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku, Kyushu and Okinawa. The Japanese archipelago, 67% forests and 14% agricultural. The primarily rugged and mountainous terrain is restricted for habitation. Thus the habitable zones, mainly in the coastal areas, have very high population densities. Japan is the 40th most densely populated country even without considering that local concentration. Honshu has the highest population density at 450 persons per square kilometer, 1200 square mi as of 2010, while Hokkaido has the lowest density of 64.5 persons per square kilometer as of 2016. As of 2014, approximately 0.5% of Japan's total area is reclaimed land. Umatechi Lake Biu is an ancient lake and the country's largest freshwater lake. The climate of Japan is predominantly temperate but varies greatly from north to south. The northernmost region, Hokkaido, has a humid continental climate with long, cold winters and very warm to cool summers. Precipitation is not heavy, but the islands usually develop deep snowbanks in the winter. In the Sea of Japan region on Honshu's west coast, northwest winter winds bring heavy snowfall during winter. In the summer, the region sometimes experiences extremely hot temperatures because of the FANE. The Central Highland has a typical inland humid continental climate with large temperature differences between summer and winter. The mountains of the Chigoku and Shikoku regions shelter the Sato Inland Sea from seasonal winds, bringing mild weather year-round. Japan has 9 forest ecoregions, which reflect the climate and geography of the islands. They range from subtropical moist broadleaf forests in the Ryukyu Bonin Islands to temperate broadleaf and mixed forests in the mild climate regions of the main islands to temperate coniferous forests in the cold, winter portions of the northern islands. Japan has over 90,000 species of wildlife as of 2019, including the brown bear, the Japanese macaque, the Japanese raccoon dog, the small Japanese field mouse, and the Japanese giant salamander. In the period of rapid economic growth after World War II, environmental policies were downplayed by the government and industrial corporations. As a result, environmental pollution was widespread in the 1950s and 1960s. Responding to rising concerns, the government introduced environmental protection laws in 1970. Japan is a unitary state and constitutional monarchy in which the power of the emperor is limited to a ceremonial role. Executive power is instead wielded by the Prime Minister of Japan and his cabinet, whose sovereignty is vested in the Japanese people. Naruhito is the Emperor of Japan, having succeeded his father Akihito upon his accession to the Chrysanthemum throne in 2019. Japan is the second highest ranked Asian country in the 2022 Global Peace Index, after Singapore. It spent 1.1% of its total GDP on its defense budget in 2022 and maintained the 10th largest military budget in the world in 2022. The country's military, the Japan Self-Defense Forces, is restricted by Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution, which renounces Japan's right to declare war or use military force in international disputes. The military is governed by the Ministry of Defense and primarily consists of the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force, the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, and the Japan Air Self-Defense Force. The deployment of troops to Iraq and Afghanistan marked the first overseas use of Japan's military since World War II. The government of Japan has been making changes to its security policy, which include the establishment of the National Security Council, the adoption of the National Security Strategy, and the development of the National Defense Program guidelines. In May 2014, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Japan wanted to shed the passiveness it has maintained since the end of World War II and take more responsibility for regional security. In December 2022, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida further confirmed this trend, instructing the government to increase spending by 65% until 2027. Recent tensions, particularly with North Korea and China, have reignited the debate over the status of the JSDF and its relation to Japanese society. Domestic security in Japan is provided mainly by the prefectural police departments under the oversight of the National Police Agency. As the central coordinating body for the prefectural police departments, the National Police Agency is administered by the National Public Safety Commission. The Special Assault Team comprises national-level counter-tactical units that cooperate with territorial-level anti-firearm squads and counter-NBC squads. The Japan Coast Guard guards territorial waters surrounding Japan and uses surveillance and control countermeasures against smuggling, marine environmental crime, poaching, piracy, spy ships, unauthorized foreign fishing vessels, and illegal immigration. Japan has the world's fourth largest economy by nominal GDP, after that of the United States, China and Germany, and the fourth largest economy by PPP. As of 2021, Japan's labor force is the world's eighth largest, consisting of over 68.6 million workers. As of 2022, Japan has a low unemployment rate of around 2.6%. Its poverty rate is the second highest among the G7 countries and exceeds 15.7% of the population. Japan has the highest ratio of public debt to GDP among advanced economies, with national debt estimated at 248% relative to GDP. As of 2022, the Japanese yen is the world's third largest reserve currency after the US dollar and the euro. Japan has a large industrial capacity and is home to some of the largest and most technologically advanced producers of motor vehicles, machine tools, steel and non-ferrous metals, chips, chemical substances, textiles, and processed foods. Japan's industrial sector makes up approximately 27.5% of its GDP. The country's manufacturing output is the third highest in the world as of 2019. Japan is the third largest automobile producer in the world as of 2022 and is home to Toyota, the world's largest automobile company by vehicle production. Quantitatively, Japan was the world's largest exporter of cars in 2021, though it was overtaken by China in early 2023. The Japanese shipbuilding industry faces increasing competition from its East Asian neighbors, South Korea and China, as a 2020 government initiative identified this sector as a target for increasing exports. Japan is a leading country in scientific research, particularly in the natural sciences and engineering. The country ranked 13th in the Global Innovation Index in 2023. Relative to gross domestic product, Japan's research and development budget is the second highest in the world, with 867,000 researchers sharing a 19 trillion yen research and development budget. As of 2017, the country has produced 22 Nobel laureates in either physics, chemistry, or medicine, and 3 fields medalists. Japan has a population of almost 125 million, of whom nearly 122 million are Japanese nationals. 2022 estimates. A small population of foreign residents makes up the remainder. Japan is the world's fastest aging country and has the highest proportion of elderly citizens of any country, comprising 1/3 of its total population. This is the result of a post-World War II baby boom, which was followed by an increase in life expectancy and a decrease in birth rates. Japan has a total fertility rate of 1.4, which is below the replacement rate of 2.1, and is among the world's lowest. It has a median age of 48.4, the highest in the world. The Japanese language is Japan's de facto national language and the primary written and spoken language of most people in the country. Japanese writing uses kanji Chinese characters and to sets of kana syllabaries based on cursive script and radicals used by kanji, as well as the Latin alphabet and Arabic numerals. Japan's constitution guarantees full religious freedom. Upper estimates suggest that 84 to 96% of the Japanese population subscribe to Shinto as its indigenous religion. However, these estimates are based on people affiliated with a temple, rather than the number of true believers. Many Japanese people practice both Shinto and Buddhism. They can either identify with both religions or describe themselves as non-religious or spiritual. Contemporary Japanese culture combines influences from Asia, Europe, and North America. Traditional Japanese arts include crafts such as ceramics, textiles, lacquerware, swords and dolls, performances of bunraku, kabuki, no, dance, and rakugo and other practices, the tea ceremony, ikebana, martial arts, calligraphy, origami, onsen, geisha and games. Japan has a developed system for the protection and promotion of both tangible and intangible cultural properties and national treasures. 22 sites have been inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List. 18 of which are of cultural significance. Japan is considered a cultural superpower. Japan has one of the oldest and largest film industries globally. Ishiro Honda's Godzilla became an international icon of Japan and spawned an entire subgenre of kaiju films, as well as the longest-running film franchise in history. Japanese comics, known as manga, developed in the mid-20th century and have become popular worldwide. A large number of manga series have become some of the best-selling comic series of all time, rivaling the American comics industry. Japanese animated films and television series, known as anime, were largely influenced by Japanese manga and have become highly popular globally. Japanese cuisine offers a vast array of regional specialties that use traditional recipes and local ingredients. Seafood and Japanese rice or noodles are traditional staples. Japanese curry, since its introduction to Japan from British India, is so widely consumed that it can be termed a national dish, alongside ramen and sushi. Traditional Japanese sweets are known as wagashi. Ingredients, such as red bean paste and mochi, are used. More modern-day tastes include green tea ice cream. Popular Japanese beverages include sake, which is a brewed rice beverage that typically contains 14 to 17% alcohol and is made by multiple fermentation of rice. Traditionally, sumo is considered Japan's national sport. Japanese martial arts, such as judo and kendo, are taught as part of the compulsory junior high school curriculum. Baseball is the most popular sport in the country. 347. Japan's top professional league, Nippon Professional Baseball (NPB), was established in 1936. Since the establishment of the Japan Professional Football League J-League in 1992, association football gained a wide following. The country co-hosted the 2002 FIFA World Cup with South Korea. Japan has one of the most successful football teams in Asia, winning the Asian Cup 4 times, and the FIFA Women's World Cup in 2011. Golf is also popular in Japan. In motorsport, Japanese automotive manufacturers have been successful in multiple different categories, with titles and victories in series such as Formula One, MotoGP, and the World Rally Championship. Drivers from Japan have victories at the Indianapolis 500 and the 24 Hours of Le Mans, as well as podium finishes in Formula One, in addition to success in domestic championships. Super GT is the most popular national racing series in Japan, while Super Formula is the top-level domestic Copenhagen series. The country hosts major races such as the Japanese Grand Prix. Thanks for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about Japan or other fascinating destinations around the world, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time.